それではですね、ここから、
Now, from here, we would like to begin the panel discussion. So the panelists are the speakers up to now: Joe, Chisato, Mr. Hosaka, Mr. Yamanaka, Dai, and also as a facilitator, we have Ms. Kumi Fujisawa from think tank SophiaBank. Thank you, and everyone, good afternoon. Received a lot of questions, so I think we'd like to use those questions that we receive for the panel discussion. Today, I have the role of moderator facilitator, but actually, art, sports, and also the art activities by people with disabilities is something that I have no experience in. So when I received the offer this time, I was very surprised. Art itself, I didn't think that it was an activity that you will be able to engage in, regardless of your having disabilities or not. But a shock to me was that in art there is a classification of art by the disabled people and disabled people. So you can see that I know nothing, and it is out of my expertise. So from professionals, you might think that my questions are rather very, very basic. So I would think of myself as a representative of the general public, the very normal public. And thank you for your understanding and your patience. Now we received a lot of speeches, and so first I'd like to have to introduce the question that we received to Joe. So in Japanese. First of all, there's two questions to Joe. The first question is, I am working at a regional theater, and when we try to do a project for the lifelong welfare activities, when we try to begin that, like Dai said, that you think of that you need to do something special. Also, for the people who engage in our activities with disabilities, they don't have a place to exert their capabilities. So the question is, why did UK start to promote these activities? Was there any factors other than the Olympic Paralympic Games? For example, there was a great artist with disability, or there were many organizations already existing that worked for the programs on disabled artists. Was there any other triggers that started this movement in UK?
I think the triggers for us were about getting access to the mainstream arts. It was people wanting to see what everybody else could see, wanting to have access to what everybody else could access. Remember, not everybody who has a disability is born with that disability. So myself, I was hearing until I was 13. And it was only at 13 that my hearing went. And so why should I stop going to theatre, which was my love, just because I could no longer hear? And many, many people felt like that. People who had gained an impairment, who had gained that experience, wanted to continue being able to access the same degree of art that they could access before. So I think the trigger was a frustration. It came out of an anger and annoyance at people saying, no, you cannot do this anymore. This is not for you. Disabled people are human beings. We're all human beings. We should all have the same rights. So it came from that perspective, the perspective of human rights.
Thank you. So I think there are some, for the frustrations was one of the opportunities that started this kind of thinking. And another question, in Japan, when people with disabilities start art activities, first, the point that's paid attention to is that person, it is a good thing because a person with disability is wanting to engage in art. And people don't discuss about the quality of art in Japan. So what is the case in UK? Do they focus just on the disability of the artist, or do they focus more on the quality of the artwork?
We want them to focus on the quality of the art, absolutely. But particularly the television and the newspapers seem fascinated with the disability again and again. So it is still a struggle It's a battle within the UK to get the work talked about. And at Unlimited, that is one of our key challenges. And we're slowly we are turning that round. But people always want to know about the disability, and the artists are bored. For them, it's normal, it's boring, it's just the way that they live their lives, whereas their art is what they're fascinated by. So we're trying to turn that round, but we haven't won the war yet.
Thank you very much. ありがとうございます。今
Thank you. So I think there is a common factor in these two questions. It is related to what Dai has said about thinking of you have to do something, or you thinking of taking the act itself because you're disabled. That kind of atmosphere is in Japan. So for this point, maybe we can ask each person to make a comment, or the panelists to make a comment. So maybe should we start with Chisato? So the question is about if a person with a disability is engaging in artistic capability, there is a tendency that you are focused on that being your disability rather than the quality. Well, I don't know if I can summarize it well, but in art, whether or not you have a disability, there will be discrimination. I don't think that's only about disabilities. I think the difference is between the area of disability and having no disability, and you need to have an access, secure the access between there, in that area between. So can I talk a little about access, please? So access, like ensuring that you are able to get information, having sign language services, also the visual, the hearing, audio interpretation, and also the subtitles. And also, do you all have mobile phones? This phone, at the beginning, mobile phones was a tool for access of hearing impaired people. So it was something that was developed for people who have hearing disabilities. But then it expanded to the tool for access for everyone, not only people with hearing disability. Now, I am based in London, and I'm back in Japan and watching the morning 15-minute drama. And I think this year, the main role, the actress in the main role is it's about the story of trying to become a patissier. And I love cakes, and so when I go to patisseries, cake shops, I enjoy looking at the cakes, and I can choose the cake that I want to eat. It's even one, or you can select more than one. So if I say that cake represents access, it's like you only have one cake in the cake shop. If you have that kind of shop in town, will you go to that shop? Or there will be the cake shops that you have a lot of choices. Which shop will you choose to go to? Which would you want to go to? And I think it's obvious. I think there will be very many difficulties in providing the choices. Like you need to make different decorations, you need to make different creams, so forth. And I think you can see the beautiful decorations and hospitality. There's wonderful hospitality in Japan, so Japan can provide access, various choices. Thank you. So concerning this keyword of access, we received a lot of questions, so we're going to introduce some of those questions too, but I will ask the same question to the other panelists as well. So for about that, you have a certain you think that it's something special, or being focused on disabilities rather than the quality. that's a kind of the atmosphere in Japan. And so what do you think about it is the question. Well, I'm working in an art museum, so basically what I do is be able to be bossy and evaluate whether it's a good or bad work. And usually what a curator likes, the general public doesn't really like. And so everyone questions us, what is your value criteria? Because the general public can't understand. But so anyway, always we're talking about good or bad for very artworks. So we're not we don't really think it's special. Disabled artworks are special because we always talk about work if it's good or bad. And another thing is one importance is if you cannot talk about the quality of work, it means you don't have the criteria in yourself. And having a criteria to make that decision whether it's evaluated good or bad is very difficult. And if you don't have that, you won't be confident. And this criteria mainly, generally, is made by history of art. If you go home, please try to look into the art history textbook. And usually that art history was made by the people with no disabilities. And up to 19th century, it was only men who made that. And in the 20th century, there was an attempt to try to make corrections. But now, or going forward, I think the art history of the disabled will be included and should be included. And with that, there will be the history of art will be rewritten. I think it's necessary to move in that direction. And probably right now, we are at one point, and we're seeing the start of that, so I'm quite excited. And so when the number of in this case, the disabled artists' artwork are increasing, then everyone will be more comfortable to say whether that work is good or bad. Right now, the criteria is made in the art world, and it's not necessarily shared with the general public, but probably that will be changed in the near future.
Thank you. So towards 2020, we would like to go into the phase of creating something of that nature. What do you think, Mr. Yamanaka? Well, I think to some extent the endeavor is now being accepted and also delivering results. But I think it was good that my work started not to save their situation, but just I was interested in their situation, and I just started making prosthetics. Artificial thing and human being binded together and deliver good performance is something I was very much intrigued. When we do research and we become experts, for example, making artificial leg for the athletes who lost one leg, then asymmetry become an issue here. Because of asymmetry, when she runs, left leg or right leg, the time that the leg is attached to the ground is different. So if we do engineer, we can discover ideal shape. That's something I was really interested in to research as a research theme. For example, we have a telephone which is quite difficult to maneuver or operate. If we found this, maybe we think of doing something, or maybe we find something that is quite unique, then we might be interested in such a device. So it's similar to that kind of situation. We want to solve the issue. And also, same applies to the aesthetic side of the things. Symmetry and asymmetry. Making something aesthetically appealing in asymmetry, we actually do so intentionally with a fashion, for example. So utilizing that kind of approach, we, instead of making asymmetry thing symmetry, we want to accept asymmetry as a positive design factor. And that's what we discuss quite often. So the amputee people, they say, they like a word asymmetry because it's not anything to do with disability or people with disability, but there is no sentimental attachment to the world, but rather it's a description of the body. So it's quite objective. So I think my attitude of being objective to the disability was probably a good thing. So Professor Yamanaka, you tried to discover new value in something that exists, and I think I'm very happy with your remark. What about you, Dai? Professor Yamanaka mentioned what he said is very close to what I would like to say, so I would like to be very succinct. If you try to be same with them, it won't be the same because I have 2 legs and my athlete friend does have only one, and it's like we are different. All of us are different from each other. So if we are to suppose that everyone is the same, then the story will be different from starting point of thinking that everyone is different. My favorite combination is that the blind people will push the wheelchair so that the people, 2 of them can actually make move, because wheelchair user can see things and the blind people actually can push the wheelchair. Of course, you can do differently, but if you approach disability differently, things will start changing. And I think Paralympic Games will change the society. That's something I have an expectation. So because of the difference, you have different roles and you can complement to each other. So that's something Joe is repeatedly saying with the word diversity. So in the society, I think maybe I can lead my question to the next phase, that is to say, I have another question. When we do this kind of endeavor, there are lack of leadership in disabled person. What kind of program do we want to develop leadership among the people with disability is another question we have. And also, the general public should know about this. In order for general public to participate in this kind of efforts, what do we need to do? And also, general public should also find the leaders among themselves to work with people with disabilities. So leaders of persons with disability or without disability, we need to, I think, develop leaders. What do you think about this, Joe? How can we create people like you?
I think leadership is vital, because if you have a disability, you are used to being a follower. You're used to other people telling you what you can or can't do. Other people saying, when I gained my hearing loss, when I became deaf, I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to be a television presenter. And when I got my hearing aid, my school made me change my exams. I had to stop drama, I had to stop music, and I did science subjects. So my exams are in science. But I have never worked in science because I'm good at it, but it doesn't interest me. It's not my passion. It's not where my heart lies. And I was lucky because I'm difficult. I'm a problem. I'm headstrong. If I want to do something, I will do that. I will ignore what people tell me. But I worry for other people who are not like that, who, if they say you must do sciences, will go and do sciences and not follow their passion and not follow their heart. So I think the first thing for leadership is that we give people choice and we give people control. And we really look at what do people want to do, and we facilitate that. Because when you are doing what you want to do, then you naturally lead. You become a leader much, much more easily. But then it is about access. You have to have access to all of the choices to make that decision. If there is only one choice, it's not a choice. In England, we say, do you want tea or coffee? That's not a choice. That's tea or coffee. I may want water. I may want green tea. I may want herb tea. I may want a beer. I want access to all the choices, not just tea, coffee.
I see. ありがとうございます。いろんな選択肢があること。
Thank you very much. So we have to have choices. And also you have to have something that you can put your heart in. Miss Minamimura, your leadership was exercised in the UK, but can you exercise your leadership in here in Japan too? Maybe I might be revealing my age, but when I was a high school student, I wanted to be an actress as well. Until my university, I actually went to the art university. These are world of art, 3D art, for example, or dance. I pursued my dancing career instead of giving up on something. Then I discovered the way to express myself and to feel confident about me with hearing disabilities. And because I was able to feel confidence, I was able to start something that I really wanted to pursue. I wanted to study in different world, even though I can't hear, but I was confident about me so that I can actually step into a different world with confidence. So when I was living in the UK, I was able to see people on the street with different disabilities, people with hearing disability or sight disability, but everyone had confidence. Everyone was asserting themselves about where they want to go. But in Japan, people with disability tend to stay at home. They cannot go out. But now, gradually, I think we see some changes happening. People with disabilities are now having access to other out world. That's because society is now gradually understanding there are people with disability in the society.
So you said that people with disabilities before they wasn't able to go outside, and that kind of change in society is creating a opportunity for more people. And what do you think is more lacking now? Even if they have an intellectual disability, some people is good in talking, and there will be opportunities for that person to excel. So the question was, how do we create opportunities for people with many types of disabilities? So maybe we can ask Dai first about this question we received from the floor. Well, this is a really personal thought, but when you think about the train being very prompt, that has, if you think that a train has to be prompt, then you have to have a person that can control the train in a prompt way. So I think it's about the society having more extra room for flexibility, not just to fit in the right person in the right with the right function, but I don't know how to express this, but create a society starting from the perspective of the human beings. Not to select the person as a member of the society, but having the person create society, I think, is important. So when you think about the person as a member of society, you should look at everyone and then start to create the society that will meet the needs of everyone in society. Well, maybe this is a grand idea and not really realistic. But yes, I think I can agree that it's about the approach. If you try to create the framework first and then fit all the people in, you're going to have people that doesn't match the framework. But if you go the other way, you can create a framework that fits in everyone. I think this is the change that we should do. What about Professor Yamanaka? As you said, currently compared with Europe and the States, I think those society has more opportunities. Like the ratio of people with disabilities, like person who lost their legs, isn't so different from Japan. But in Europe and U.S., we can see many people that has their prosthetic legs visible and walking around town. But in Japan, we won't see those kinds of people. I think that's something about Japanese culture that you think it's taboo to talk about the prosthetic leg, and that is felt by the disabled person as well. But then you might think this is nothing new. But even in Europe, there was a time that when disability was a sin, that disability was something that shows that you were not loved by God. So there was a time in Europe's history that it was thought that way. But we can make a change even in Japan, like we've seen as the example in European countries. So maybe Japan has just entered into that process. So in the gradual change that we're seeing, something that we definitely want to change is related to the next question. The current status of access when you go to enjoy the performances is an issue. For example, if you go to a theater performance, the people with disabilities wanting to enjoy the theater, movies, probably in Japan, especially, it's not about the lack of accessibility, but this questioner said that in Japan it seems that people with hearing abilities is excluded as an audience. Not only theaters, but probably art museums and science museums. What do you think of accessibility, Mr. Hosaka? Well, that is that one issue that we're working on. And most of the public art museums is working on making the venue barrier-free. But that is only a physical barrier-free, like having no height differences. But the invisible barrier is not removed yet, I believe. For example, if a visually impaired person becomes to enjoy a artwork, how the staff at the museum handles and greet those people is one issue that we have to think about. Before the London Paralympics Games, there was a decided at the Olympic Committee about the rights of disabled people, and in Japan, it was finally signed and issued in 2014. So in there, it was said that the disabled people with disabilities shouldn't feel that they're disabled. For example, if it's in movies, you should have the subtitles, and even if it's art museums, create an environment that people with disability can enjoy the paintings. It is quite difficult. We tried it to explain about a painting to people who cannot see. It's hard to start, actually. You can't say that you see the frame. You can't say that. So it was an experience for me that was very challenging. I didn't know where to start to explain about that painting. But anyway, I think building up on those kinds of experiences will be the start. We have a little more time until the Olympics, so I'd like to build up the experience and try to make improvements as much as possible. I hope that we'll see a lot of those kinds of examples. Like Dai said, as reverse engineerings, I think maybe we can create an art that is enjoyable from people with disabilities that might be enjoyable for people without disabilities as well. And as Chisato has said, people with hearing disabilities enjoying music, hearing the visual music is one idea, I think. For people with hearing, visual disabilities, do you have any examples in UK where you made improvements so that accessibility will be improved for those people? Joe? Excuse me, it was to Chisato, sorry. So starting of sign language, it's sign language. Can you do this with me for the British Sign Language? Take out one of your hand, please. One hand, and your middle finger, ring finger, and pinky, put it together. And put your right hand in between your ring finger and pinky. What if you can't do that? What if there's people who can't put your fingers together? Well, to explain what this means is that if you close your fingers, you can't place it through. You can't put your hand through. But if you open your fingers, if there's a gap between your fingers, like Dai said, people's heart, if you open your heart, then you can go through. So by opening the people's heart, I think we can have a sharing in the society. In the case of Japan, the way of Japan, or the method that Japan takes, well, I think that Japan should work in their own way to improve accessibility. Well, we talk about hospitality, omotenashi of Japan, and I think hospitality, you first have to stand in the shoes of the person that you're trying to provide the hospitality to. So you need to open your heart, I guess. Do you have something to say, Joe, about access, improving access for diverse people? Do you have any ideas of what we can do as ideas to improve accessibility?
I think everybody can do something. However small the organization or the museum or the gallery or the theatre, however small, there are still things you can do. The first thing you can do is to meet people with an open heart, a smile and a welcome, absolutely, because sometimes people behave as though they do not want disabled people within their spaces. So everybody can do that, it costs nothing. Then there are many other things you can do very, very cheaply. If I go to a theatre and there is no sign language interpreter or no captions, no words, then they can give me a copy of the script. If they know I'm coming, sometimes I get a copy of a script a couple of days before, so I can familiarise myself with the story. It doesn't cost them anything. It's a really easy thing to do. Some theatres do like a cartoon of the story for people who cannot read, so that they can understand the storyboard of what they're about to see. Very easy to do. Audio description of artwork, where you describe the artwork for visually impaired people, is complicated, but also is a real creative task. Some people like to know the materials that are used. Some people like to know exactly what somebody sees. Some people like to know what is the kind of feeling that it evokes. For me, the best audio descriptions are where the artists are involved themselves and they describe their work. And they're not just blind people, but everybody wants to hear that audio description. So it opens up for a much wider audience. And then the third thing we often do, increasingly do in the UK, is have relaxed performances. A relaxed performance or a relaxed gallery evening or a relaxed event is where you don't have to follow the codes of behaviour. So you don't have to be quiet. Often there is music on. It's a light way. So if you make noise, if your behaviour is different, you don't stand out because nobody stares. Often galleries are very quiet, very contemplative places. On a relaxed evening, there is music, people move around quickly and slowly, there is more choice. So sometimes families go because the mother may want to look at the work while her child is running around. Or somebody with autism or who makes noise involuntarily. Everybody can go and enjoy the work without feeling that they are doing it wrong. So they're just some ideas.
Okay. ありがとうございます。もういろんなことができるし、一人一人が本当にコスト。
So many things can be done even at very low cost. So thank you very much for your ideas and advice. And we have more questions from people who are assisting the people with disability, they are saying they don't have enough money. What is the situation in the UK? And so that's another question. The project supported by public funds limits some activities done by artists with a disability, but we need to secure quality and novelty, but yet we need to support artists with disability. What about money? How can we do was a question. And also, is it possible for people with disability live on their art? Are there any possibilities for their future? So those are the questions. Joe, can you ask these questions to you? The public funding and earning money with the arts, all sorts of economic matters. Could you answer these questions, please?
Every artist we work with is paid, full stop. Everybody is paid the same as an artist without a disability would be paid. If somebody is on welfare benefits, then the money may go in a different way to provide access for that person. But money is always exchanged. You're not expected to do things for free. The money situation in the UK is becoming hard, and people are looking to cut the budgets, and we're fighting hard to keep the levels the same. As a disabled person who works, I have my access paid for by the government. So when I use interpreters, I get the money for them paid for by the government. For my equipment, my hearing loops, things like that, I get the money back from the government. So we're in a very privileged position where, yes, artists are paid. Nobody's expected to be a volunteer all the time.
Yes, that's indeed important thing, regardless of whether you have disabilities or not. Mr. Hosaka, what do you see about this? I agree with you, Joe. We tend, as curator, to feel, can you discount fees because we don't have enough money? But we should do some soul searching. Well, whether people with disability can live on art, there is a very interesting project. The place called Göring in Austria. It's very expensive by our standard of the contemporary field. If the piece of the art is priced this, then it's very high. However, that is a price that people need to pay to support those artists with disability. So that kind of pricing is done in some parts of the world, including Austria. I hope we would like to see this change in Japan as well. And also in the US, for example, the charity events takes place for the large disaster, for example, the ones in somewhere in Asia. And if you say charity over and over again, we may be criticized for discriminating them. But usually it's very difficult to price the art, but the people wishing to support artists with disability may be willing to pay an extra money. Then I think the world of contemporary art for people with disability may change. Professor Yamanaka, if I may ask this question or not, I'm not sure. From different approach, could you try to answer this question, please, as a challenge? Well, money is quite important. For example, artificial leg. You have only insurance reimbursement paid only for one leg. But if you are an athlete, you have to have one for athletic activities and one for just walking. And we can't make an athletic leg that can be used for day-to-day life because athletic artificial leg cannot help the disability person to stand on its own. So they need to have two artificial legs and one out of their pocket and one covered by insurance. And athletic leg is quite expensive because of the material being used. It's like a price of a car. If you are the top class athletes. And so if you want to do something, the athletes with disability may need to have some support. But is that known to everyone or not? That's very important. If you know that athletes requires help for their athletic leg. So, for example, the Japanese tatami room is very difficult to have an access to. If you are the wheelchair user, you are not allowed to get into the Japanese tatami room. And also, the Japanese houses requires you to take off your shoes, but it's very difficult for people with prosthetic leg to take off shoes, because that actually makes their leg imbalanced. The legs are quite precise how it works. So you can actually notice by seeing the people wearing artificial leg having trouble. But that alone is not well known among many people. So I think if everyone knows about these kind of things, I think Japanese government or government will be able to feel more easy to support those athletes or artists. So of course, you don't want to try too hard, or you don't want to feel strained by having people with disability around. However, indifference is the most difficult thing, or things that makes solution impossible. Trying to feel that the people with disability doesn't make any difference vis-a-vis people with or without disability, but it won't make things better for people with disability, because that's, in other words, insensibility. So we have to keep interested in the situation of people with disability so that the government can change its attitude. So we tend to be natural, but we don't want to be indifferent. So that's quite important balance to hit. So when we think about disability in Japan, and also a disability and art in Japan, as well as the Ministry of Education, perhaps culturally there can be a grant. And also there can be a grant from sports. And also there can be a grant from the welfare viewpoint, from the Ministry of Labor and Welfare. Welfare as a word, as a key word, what do we need to understand this in the context of disability and art and disability? Or sports and disability? Dai, what do you think? I think you're giving me very tough questions. No, I think you can do it. Well, leaving the image of the word aside, I think keyword welfare is important. There is no question. The Paralympics is governed by the Ministry of Welfare, and Olympics are governed by the Ministry of Education. Until a few years ago, the facilities used by the Olympians are not made available for Paralympians, and the Paralympians didn't really have enough facility to use to practice. Ministry of Labor and Welfare didn't have any sporting ground, and therefore they need to do practicing at a very limited venue. Now it's open for everyone, but if you go to the rural area, they don't really know, and they don't really understand, and therefore they say, don't use this ground with your prosthetic leg, because that would actually damage the ground. So societal change has to happen to make people more enjoying access to the facilities.
So I think that the power of Olympians is stronger than the Paralympians, and we have importance for the Paralympians leader. But I think what's more important is the linkage or collaboration between the leaders of Olympians and Paralympians. And maybe it's the same thing. That's for the sports culture, but I think we can say the same thing for arts as well. So when you categorize people as someone who plays sports, I think that's my perspective. Well, there's one thing that I felt about the Ministry of Welfare and Ministry of Education's area in charge. For the people who run with artificial legs, from a science viewpoint, you can think I want to measure how it's working or what kind of effect it has. And if you want to do a scientific research, there is the National Science Sports Facility that can be used by the general public. For researchers, it's open, so I've made applications and made requests to utilize that facility, but the response was that, well, your area is under that center facility is for the ministry under the authorization of the Ministry of Welfare, and so the Ministry of Education was not able to give me the approval. So, but now it should be. The area of responsibility has changed. So for the Paralympians, so I think that problem has already been solved. But I think those kinds of issues will still be remaining. I feel that toward 2020, there's many things that we have to change, including the government administration as well. So to all of you, we want you to make sure those changes are made. To Chisato, I'd like to ask, the keyword of welfare is being used in Japan frequently. In UK, to people with disabilities, welfare, and disabled people engaged in artwork, what is the positioning of welfare of what you observed in UK? Now, as I was listening to the other people's comments, it's a little embarrassing, but when we talk about this word of welfare, I didn't really come up with a word. So I didn't know what it would be in English. So right now, listening to the Japanese word for welfare, maybe I am inside of a environment of welfare. I really don't understand what the concept of welfare is. Does everyone think that welfare means the same thing for every person? Is this word of welfare necessary? I actually want to ask that question from my side. Well, I think that's a very good question. That made me realize something, and maybe I want to ask Dai again. But when you say that, probably her point, I really agree to her point that maybe welfare means different things to different people. Yeah, I think so too. But also, we were talking about the prosthetic legs is about 500,000 yen or even 1,000,000 yen. It's very expensive, and we should think of how that it could be covered by. And I think in one sense, tax will be will be centralized, and it should be redistributed. So based on that kind of principle, welfare is distributed in the same way. But I don't know how to express this. But so people who become sick or ill with illness distribute the welfare to them. If maybe it's not, I don't know. But you have to call it something in order to have a secure budget. Well, maybe Mr. Hosaka can comment because you have the mic in your hand. Well, I am not an expert of welfare, but I was looking up the definition of welfare, and it was quite complicated. And it's quite complicated, so I won't be able to explain more than that. The translation I found was social welfare. One thing that caught my interest is the Japanese constitutions, which is a big issue right now. Social welfare, this term comes up many times in the constitution, and culture comes as an adjective one time in the constitution, and no word of art comes up in constitution. So Chisato asked the question, am I in welfare? So I think you can say that unintentionally we are all in the environment of welfare. But in any case, keeping that aside, thinking of possibilities from my perspective, art and also culture is something that is moved by the idea of competition in one sense. Like our country is better than the other countries' art and culture, or my artwork is better than other people's artwork. I think there's this kind of competitiveness, idea of competitiveness in this art and culture world. But in the world of social welfare, there's an idea of equality, and also for communities, if something's lacking, you should complement with something. And even with art as the work itself, an exhibition, I think that thinking can be applied too. And thinking of art from that sense, I think it has a character of social welfare as well. If we think that art is going to change going forward, and think about what's the difference between art and social welfare, maybe the question itself may sound strange to you, but in the future, we might have a society where there's no difference between art and social welfare. Well, now the more that we go up to get close to our ending, everyone has something to want to say. Well, anyway, I want to say that there is a difference in situations in Western countries. In local galleries, they purchase local artworks. That's something common, and in art business world, there might be purchasing something that's very cheap and to do an experiment. But in Japan, there's not such kind of habit. Usually, the big organizations will set something as art, and everyone will be thinking that as the correct art, and it will be quite expensive. And you don't have the you don't think that art is very close to the individuals, so. But I think variation is possible. There should be people who are interested in the art of the disabled people because of that person has made it. I think everyone should make an evaluation based on their own perspective or value. But usually when we think of art, we tend to think that these things are, the importance of these things are evaluated by big institutions, and you have to know about those categorizations officially made. But I think it's important that everyone thinks it's something that you can evaluate with your own value. One very interesting thing with the presentation was that the difference between there is a mixture in UK on enjoying the artworks that is made by the disabled person because that person is disabled, and also the artwork that's made by disabled artists, but the disability is not focused on. I think the mixture is very interesting. The mixture, there should be a mixture, and each and every one of us, the audience, should evaluate with their own value and criteria, and to think to say if they like it or not. Thank you. I really wanted to develop this further, but we only have a few minutes left. Since we have Joe from London, Tour 2020 Tokyo Olympic and Paralympic Games, in order for Japan to make something happen like Unlimited, can we receive your final advice to the people of Japan?
I think for me, it's about equality. I do not think I am lesser of a person because I have a disability. I think I am exactly the same. I just need some different things. I actually think in some ways it makes me more of a person because it means I'm more unique. And I think if my message would be to shift in your head from seeing it as a negative into something that can be a positive. Not all the time, in not all the ways, but there are positives there to find. And I think it's finding those that make the real successes happen.
ありがとうございます。とても
Thank you so much. I think your words have given us, each and every one of us, a lot of courage. So we have just one more minute left. Most of the questions were answered, but there is a little bit left, so we'd like to follow up and end this discussion.
こちらについてもテーマに
The piano Paralympic was another item that was included in question. Of course, that can be one of the themes that we can think of. Piano Paralympics can have some world in the art as well. And also connecting sports and art, maybe we can do something. Do you have any good idea? Was another question. Towards 2020, when we have Olympic Games and Paralympic Games hosted in Japan, that can be not only a sport event, but also art event. So there will be more than 200,000 events of art. That is the government target before 2020. So sports people and art people will have more connections among themselves so that we can find something that can connect people, art, and sports together. And if you actually voice yourselves out and if you express yourselves, that will actually make the society more noticing yourselves. Now, thank you very much for your comments from very different vantage points, but we discussed about diversity and also creating a society accepting diversity, accepting different values, and offering more options and choices depending on who you are. Everyone needs to try a little harder to accept or open themselves. So we need to engage ourselves, and also we need to engage other people into the societal matters. As Mr. Tamesue mentioned, Paralympians may offer values to the society. That is not only relating to the Paralympians, but also people who don't think they have any disabilities may also have to think about the values that they can offer to the society so that our society will be the one that accepts more diversity. And towards 2020, Japan can be different from what we are now. So we need to think about the items that we discussed today going forward. And then I think we can have totally different future. That's my observation. The panel discussion was only 60 minutes and that was very short, but we would like to conclude panel discussion at this juncture. And please give them a round of applause, please. Once again, thank you very much, Ms. Fujisawa and the members of the panel for your participation. And also, I thank the audience today. And Ms. Fujisawa concluded and summarized the discussion that we have had today. But anyway, we need to secure diversity, and that should be good for our future. Access or accessibility can be a good word, a key word, and also leadership is another key word. And collaboration as a key word was used by Jo at the end of her presentation. Sports, culture, welfare. We also picked some new keyword. So from these keywords, you can see we are having different backgrounds, and also the sponsors for this forum is also from different backgrounds, including ourselves. I think we should be able to have more collaboration towards 2020. What kind of discussion can we have going forward, and what kind of actions can we have? If you have any ideas, please fill out the questionnaire before you leave so that we can think about our future event. Thank you very much for your participation, and give the panelists another round of applause.